honorable dignitaries on the dais and off the dais. Very good morning and salams. With New Year greetings, I thank my Lord for providing me a chance to interact with intelligent students. Moreover, presence of Reverend Father Pacquiam is God's blessings for us. At the outset, I start my topic with the supplication from the Psalms, Zabur, as Prophet David asked for wisdom, the Psalms, Book 1, Chapter 119. Lord, I am your servant. Give me understanding that I may know your testimonies. Hold me up, that I may be safe and have regards for your statute continually. Let your hand be ready to help me, for I have chosen your precepts. Great peace have those who love your law. Nothing can make them stumble. Prophet Solomon prays for wisdom as in Book 7, 15 and 16. May God grant that I speak with judgment and have thoughts worthy of what I have received, for He is the guide even of wisdom and corrector of the wise. For both words are in His hands. Prophet Jesus directs in Bible of Matthew chapter 7 verse 7. Ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened to you. Prophet Muhammad, be peace upon him, asks his Lord, Rabbi zidni ilma. O Lord, increase my knowledge and wisdom. So following the Prophet's path, I ask my Lord to grant me wisdom and make my subject fruitful, fragrant, to touch your heart and soul. Amen. Terrorism is one of the serious threats the world is facing today. The tragedy and irony of it is that most acts of armed violence by groups or individuals are being carried out in the name of religion. Any terrorist, indeed any individual, can fulfill a given mission properly only when he is ideologically convinced of its validity. Ideology provides man with the necessary inspiration. Without an ideology, he fails to summon the requisite energy and enthusiasm so vital to the success of any struggle. This is as true of terrorism as it is of any other field of human effort. Some countries are engaged in crushing terrorism in the name of religion through military action, but it is not sufficient to eliminate this phenomenon. Apart from often being armed to their teeth, today's terrorists are consumed by the ideology of their cause. So engaging them is not simply an issue of gun versus gun, it has to be an issue of gun versus ideology. Violence always begins in the mind. It needs to be uprooted, therefore, from the mind itself. We have to find an ideology of peace with which to confront the ideology of violence. Without that, there will be no end to the violence. A new strategy must now be adopted, a strategy that requires developing a full-fledged ideology of peace to counter the ideology of violence. The ideology of violence is prevalent all over the world and is so deep-rooted in the minds of not only the extremists but also of many common men that it is important to expose this ideology for what it is and show in detail how it contradicts heavenly teachings. The Quran teaches us not to be extremists in our religion. Its exact words are, Ya Ahlal Kitab la taghlu fi dinikum, chapter 4, verse 171. People of the book, do not go to extreme in your religion. We also learn from a saying of Prophet Muhammad that extremist tendencies have always been the chief reason for religious groups going astray. That is why the Prophet once observed, sedulously refrain from extremism, for previous communities were destroyed only because of their extremist tendencies in religious matters. Ghulu, exaggeration, is engendered in a religious community when it goes into a state of decline and is in fact a sign of its degeneration. For example, the concept of such as God's vicegerent. Islam is complete religion. It should be enforced throughout the world, so on. In the light of ongoing conflict, we must ask why so great contradiction has arisen between the principles of Quran and the practices of present-day Muslims. The Quran exhorts believers to strive for the cause of Allah as it is bounden duty to strive for it. It has been said in chapter 22, verse 78, وَجَاهِدُوا فِي اللَّهِ حَقَّ جِهَادِهِ. This earnest struggle is expressed in Arabic by the word jihad, which is derived from the root juhud, which means to strive, to struggle, that is, to exert oneself to the utmost to achieve a particular goal. Thus, the original meaning of jihad in Arabic is striving very hard. Since in the early days, Muslims have to strive hard during the wars with aggressors. These wars came in an extended form to be called as jihad. However, the actual word for such a war in Arabic is qital, Qital, or her, not jihad. It's a misnomer. War with an aggressor is a chance occurrence, taking place as warranted by the particular situations, while jihad is a continuous action which is at the core of believers' life day in and day out. It is an ongoing process. This constant jihad means strict adherence to the will of God in all the aspects of one's life and the prevention of any obstacle coming in between fulfilling the will of God's will. For example, the desires of the self, the urge to serve one's own interests, the compulsion of social traditions, the need for compromises, ego problems, greed for wealth, and so on. All these things directly spoil the righteous actions, overcoming all such hurdles and preserving and obeying God's commands are the real jihad, and the word jihad has been used primarily in this original sense only. We quote here some traditions as recorded in Musnad, which defines the role of mujahid. Number one, a mujahid is one who struggles with himself for the sake of God. A mujahid is one who exerts himself for the cause of God. A mujahid is one who struggles with own self in submission to the will of God. The present world is a testing ground. The entire fabric of this world has been designed with a view to fulfill the purpose of the divine trial of man. This being so, the human being is necessarily faced with all kinds of temptations, which are so many barriers to his measuring up to God's standards. Jihad essentially is a peaceful struggle. One form of this peaceful struggle is dawah, to convey the message of Creator to the created being, or communicate the message of God. It has been stated in Quran in chapter 25, verse 25. فَلَا تُطِعِ الْكَافِرِينَ وَجَاهِدْهُمْ بِهِ جِهَادًا كَبِيرًا. Hence, do not defer to the likes and the dislikes of those who deny the truth, but strive hard against them by means of this divine book with utmost striving. So, my dear students, struggling with own self to convey the messages of the God, messages of the Creator to the created being, this is the real meaning of jihad, which is now misused by each and everyone. Our tradition, no military action is referred in this verse of the Quran. No military action is referred. We are not made to engage in the physical combat with the non-believers. What this verse actually means is that
we must engage ourselves in communication or dawah activities through the teachings of the Quran. That is, striving ourselves to the utmost on an ideological plane while shifting truth from falsehood. A tradition narrated by Mother Aisha, the Prophet's wife, provides a guiding principle. She says, Prophet said him, قال يا عائشة إن الله رفيق يحب الرفق ويؤتي على الرفق ما لا يؤتي على الأنف وما لا يؤتي على ما سواه. Whenever the God grants for choosing the easier way, whenever the Prophet had to choose between the two courses, he would always opt for the easier one. This means that in any matter, he would always abandon the harder option in favor of the easier one. It has been narrated in the Ahadith book Bukhari. The Prophet therefore totally avoided the physical purification of the Kaaba and limited himself to the theoretical communication of the message of monotheism. It was the first prophetic example of adopting a peaceful method and non-confrontational method instead of a violent or confrontational method. Adhering strictly to this peaceful principle, the Prophet continued to work in Makkah for a period of 13 years. But even then, the Quraysh turned his dire enemies, and ultimately the Quraysh leader, in consultation among themselves, arrived at an agreement to kill the Prophet. Therefore, armed youths of their tribe surrounded his home one night to put their plan into action. This was certainly an open challenge for the Prophet and his companions to do battle with them. Instead, the Prophet, guided by God, decided to avoid any military encounter. Therefore, in the stillness of the night, he quietly left his home in Makkah for Medina. It was a turning point in the history called Hijrah, height of peaceful method to diffuse the tension. Leave your own home, go away, and let the tension be diffused. The Battle of the Trench is another example of the system of the Prophet. On this occasion, a large number of people from different tribes had come to Medina with the intention to attack on him. It was clearly a military challenge, but the Prophet used a strategy to avoid an encounter with the enemy. The Hudaybiyah peace treaty also provides another example of peaceful solutions. At that time, the Prophet and his companions wanted to perform minor pilgrimage, Umrah, by entering Makkah. But when they reached Hudaybiyah, 9 miles from Makkah, they were stopped by the Quraysh leaders. They said that no event would they allow them to enter into Makkah. This again was a military challenge. If the Prophet wanted to advance as planned towards Makkah, an encounter was sure to take place. Therefore, the Prophet at that place only and entered into a peace treaty accepting one-sided conditions laid down by the enemy. He then came back to Medina without having performed Umrah. This was a very clear prophetic example of adopting a peaceful method as opposed to a violent method. The conquest of Makkah provides an equally telling example to avoid combat. At that time, the Prophet was accompanied by 10,000 companions, devoted followers. They could certainly have taught a successful battle with the Quraysh. Yet the Prophet Muhammad decided to demonstrate the power rather than use it. He did not come out with 10,000 strong followers army to declare the war against the Quraysh in order to conquer Makkah after a bloody encounter. He instead made preparation for a journey with the utmost secrecy, and traveling with his companions, he quietly entered Makkah. This entry was so sudden that the Quraysh could not make any preparation for war and Makkah was conquered without any carnage. This incident provides a fine example of adopting a peaceful method instead of a violent method. In the recent times, one celebrated example of success of such a course is to be found in the life of Indian leader Mahatma Gandhi. Due to temporal changes, it became possible for Mahatma Gandhi to wage political battles successfully by adopting the principles of non-violence and engaging in peaceful activism in the full sense of these expressions. Quran does give permission to do battle, but such permission is given only in the case of an attack by opponents in spite of the policy of avoidance being followed by the Muslims, thus creating a situation where self-defense is required. The Quran has to say, permission to take up arms thereby is given to those who are attacked because they have been wronged. At another place, the Quran gives valid reason for fighting. They were first to attack you. The Quran is a book of ideology. In such a case, performing jihad with the Quran would mean an ideological struggle to conquer the people's heart and minds through the Quran's superior philosophy. In the light of this verse of Quran, jihad in actual fact is another name for peaceful activism or non-violent activism. Where qital is violent activism, jihad is non-violent activism. Now let us ponder over the orders and the verses of Final Testament over qital or harb. First verse appears in chapter 2, verse 190. وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَقْتَلُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. And fight in the way of Allah against those who fight you, but do not commit aggression. Allah does not like transgressors. The inferences drawn from this very first words of war are enumerated as: number 1, the war should always be in the way or cause of Allah. The wars in the name of nation or any other purpose will not fall in this category, as the condition has been laid in chapter 9, verse 20. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ بِأَمْوَالِهِمْ وَأَنفُسِهِمْ. Those who believe and who have forsaken the domain of evil and have striven hard in Allah's cause with their possessions and their lives. My dear students, the struggle with own self, with my own possession, is the real struggle hard. With your money, I cannot make it. With your life, I cannot make it. It is a condition given by Quran and misused by everyone. The whole sequence throughout the Quran is like this. It is very important. First, call to the natural truth, that is the religion. If resistance comes, practice the total patience. If the atrocities are not bearable, then migrate. If after migration there are attacks by the enemy or opponent, respond it fully and defend yourself. This is the Holy Spirit. The faithful are bound by regulations even during such a battle. For the cause of Allah, they are forbidden to commit excesses. Even in the war times, they cannot do excesses. People generally believe that everything is fair in war, and whereas the Quran forbids transgression even in war, for it regards both the invaders and the defenders as creatures of the same God. Excesses cannot be justified under the God-ordained Quranic norms. The Prophet of Allah himself guided the believers in his time how to face a war, what are the etiquettes and the manners. These injunctions are in the books of traditions called hadith. It is praiseworthy to find more humane rules than the Geneva Convention concerning wars and prisoners of wars preached by the Prophet some 15 centuries ago. He said, "No war should be started without the clear declaration. Only those would be killed who had rallied in the enemy's battalion. Children, women, and the aged persons would be spared. Even young persons who are not involved in the war would be spared. The drinking water facilities, public utility items will not be polluted or destroyed. The person who surrenders his arms will not be killed or harmed. The prisoners of war will be treated in a humane way. There would be no and inordinate delay in the setting of prisoners of wars." Details are available in the writings of historians of repute. Unfortunately, the Muslims nowadays are least interested in highlighting these aspects of Quran preached by Prophet Muhammad to their people and the rest of humanity. In modern times, the nations who have understood these principles have achieved success even without having political power. Political power is not desirable for achieving the success in different fields. Some have become established and excelled in the field of education, while others have set up umpires in the industry, communication or finance. The last in the list of these non-government empires is that of computers. This has given man the opportunity to keep his finger on the pulse of human activity, not only at the national level but at the international level. Now the question arises whether these Quranic laws, which teaches non-violence, can be of relevance in the present age and assume a superior position once again in the new situations. The answer is entirely in the affirmative. The truth is that Quranic Islam being a peaceful religion, show that it is an eternal religion. In the past, Quran had played a great role in the development of humanity, as a result of which human history entered a new age of progress and development. The time has come today for Quran to play a great constructive role, leading human history once again in a new age of progress. It means delinking religion and science from one another. In this way, scientific research acquired an atmosphere of freedom for its functioning. For the first time in human history, science or human knowledge could be developed freely without the intervention of religion, and advancing gradually, it culminated in the attainment of this important. But today, man is again facing an even greater problem. That is, despite the extraordinary progress made in the field of science and technology, human beings are confronted with the various kinds of problems without there being any solution in the sight. All these problems have resulted from not knowing the limit of freedom. Modern man is in need of a religion or a system based on complete peace. It should be free from superstitious beliefs and should provide the answers to deep psychological questions. The principles should not clash with the scientific realities. The root cause of all these deviations is traceable to our deviation from the peaceful model of the nature. Quran trains every member of the society to be peaceful, because whenever there is a state of peace, whenever the state of peace prevails in a society, in the real sense, its members will necessarily engage themselves in positive activities. Their energies will be channelized into the reconstruction of their own lives and of their social environment. The establishment of peace in a society can be linked to removing a dam from a river. Human life, like a flowing river, wants to surge forward under its own momentum. When there is no obstruction, all life's activities will be set in motion. Propelled by human nature itself, they come to a halt only when the artificial barriers of war and violence are placed before them. Peace, from the point of view of its results, is like an opening of all the doors of success to the fullest possible extent. Peaceful revelation is the outcome of peaceful thinking. Peaceful minds make for a peaceful world. Man was born in peace. Man must die in peace. Peace is man's birthright. It's God's greatest blessing for a human being. For the first time in history, the Prophet Muhammad presented a complete ideology based on the concept of peace. He gave us the formula for the building of a healthy life by shunning hatred and violence. Through him, a revolution was set in motion which made it possible to construct a peaceful society by avoiding war and confrontation. For example, Hazrat Umar went to Jerusalem from Mecca and signed an agreement with the Christians. This agreement contained, among other things, the guarantee that all the relics in the Christian churches, for instance, the statue of Mary and Jesus and the Holy Cross, believed to be the one of which Christ was nailed, would be left intact. All these objects were part of the Christian culture, and it was specified in the agreement particularly that the Christian community had the right to preserve and maintain their heritage. Our world functions on the principle of competition. That is why challenges and provocations are never absent from any situation. Our world can never be free from these negatives. What sole remedy is this is to refuse to be provoked even in the provocative situations. Peace is the result of such unilateral ethics. In this world, we can find nothing ready-made. Everything has to undergo a process of conversion. That is why we can never find ready-made peace here. We shall have to summon up all our wisdom to convert that which is non-peace into peace. Only then we can possess peace, just as this principle applies to the life of an individual, as also does it apply at national as well as international levels. The human body requires blood in system of its survival, but we cannot produce ready-made blood in this world. For this we require a system where non-blood, after passing through a particular natural process, may be converted into blood. Without conversion, it is impossible to produce blood for ourselves. Secondly, it never happens that a tree suddenly appears before us in its fully developed form. A seed is converted by stages into a tree. We can say that there is a process in nature which converts a non-tree into tree, then only a tree stands on the earth in all its majesty. Similarly, a cow gives milk only after a natural process of conversion has taken place. It is as if the cow is an industry of nature which converts non-milk into milk. In a similar way, the food of a man requires for his physical sustenance can come into existence only when nature's factory converts the non-edible into edible, and man's digestive system further converts this edible material into flesh and blood. The matter of peace too falls under this general law of nature. Peace is vital for our social existence, but cannot be found ready-made. Peace in this world. Therefore, in like manner, peace can be had only by those individuals of society who have the ability to convert non-peace into peace. We can find the peace only when we have demonstrated this ability. Instead of all the negative activities, patience, reconciliation and compromise can get success in the natural process. I quote chapter 4 verse 128. وَالصُّلْحُ خَيْرٌ وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنْفُسُ الشُّحَّ. And compromises is the best way to settle, while selfishness is ever present in human nature. It is this peace peacemaking process which was expressed by Jesus in this world. Give to Caesar what is due to Caesar and give to God what is due to God. Christ has exhorted us to follow nature's example in these divine words. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Bible of Matthew chapter 6 verse 10. Prophet Muhammad also stated, Uttu ilahim haqqahum wa sallallahu haqqakum. Man goes on paying dues. It means go on paying the dues of human fellow beings and ask from God for your own needs. This means that by avoiding a head-on clash with unfavorable conditions, we may gain time for the achievement of our objectives. In the context of peace, this formula may be expressed thus. Tolerate the state of non-peace so that you may obtain the state of peace. This is the only way to convert non-peace into peace in this world. There is no other path to peace. Peace activism is ostensibly an external action, but it is the result of an internal awareness. It is a peaceful mind alone that can appreciate the benefits of peace activism and can properly bring it into play. Prophet Muhammad realized this truth. That is why first and foremost he worked towards building peace-loving minds. Only after this he was succeeded in it, where he and his followers were able to launch their movement, abiding by the principles of peace activism. Quran in chapter 2 verse 129 calls this action of mind building purification, tazkiyah. It states that an important task of the Prophet was to work for the purification of minds. In other words, for the purification of the soul. It has been said, Rabbana wabas fihim rasulam minhum yatlu alayhim ayatika wa yuallimuhum al-kitaba wal hikmah wa yuzakkihim. O our sustainer, raise up from the midst of our offsprings a messenger from amongst themselves, who shall convey unto them your messages and import unto them revelations as well as wisdom, and cause them to grow in purity. How does this purification work? We learn about it from a symbolic hadith. In it, the Prophet said that when a believer commits sin, his heart develops a black spot, but when he repents and seeks forgiveness from God, his heart gets cleansed of it. However, if he does not refrain from committing sins, the spot goes on increasing until the whole heart is enveloped. In this hadith, Prophet Muhammad tells us of a very important truth which is borne out by a psychological study. This study tells us that when some thought comes into human mind, it becomes embedded in the memory's storehouse and is never expunged from it. The human mind comprises the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. When any thought enters the human mind, it first goes into the conscious mind and then gradually shifts to the subconscious mind. This shifting process takes place mostly while we are sleeping. In this way, although a thought that is fresh in our memory today may be forgotten tomorrow, in reality it is not lost but becomes an integral part of our personality. In this way, our thoughts shape our personality. The unpleasant events that life inevitable entails result in negative thoughts in our mind. These thoughts, if not immediately converted into positive ones, will eventually become part of our personality. It is the possessor of such negative personalities who become involved in the war and violence against others. Violence is simply an external manifestation of a negative personality. When any negative thought enters one's mind, one should immediately convert it into a positive feeling. A person who acts promptly to set in motion this process of mental conversion will build up a veritable storehouse of positive ideas in his subconscious mind. Only such people are truly capable of launching a movement for peace. Prophet Muhammad understood this psychological reality and through the purification of minds and souls formed a team of followers numbering more than 1 lakh who were staunchly committed to the principle of peace activism. While remaining strictly in a peaceful sphere, they were able to achieve their target thanks to their positive way of thinking. To usher in a far-reaching and beneficent revolution, now I spell serenity prayer from the Bible. O God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Now I pray to the Lord for the peace of globe as Saint Francis prayed. O Lord, make me an instrument of your peace where there is hate, that I may bring love, where there is offense, that I may bring pardon, where there is discord, that I may bring union, where there is error, that I may bring truth. Amen. Where there is doubt, that I may bring faith, where there is despair, that I may bring hope, where there is darkness, that I may bring light, where there is sadness, that I may bring joy. And at the end of my words, I thank Father Patrick Samuel, the staff of SFS Church, all the students and organizers for giving me this opportunity. I supplicate with this prayer. Allahumma innaka anta salam wa minka salam wa ilayka yarji'u salam wa hayyana rabbana bis salam wa adkhilna dar salam tabarakta rabbana wa ta'ala ya jalali wal ikram. O Lord, you are the fount of peace. Peace originates from you and peace returns to you. Let us live in peace. Let us enter the abode of peace. Glory be to you, O our Lord, and all the mights are due to you, O fount of majesty and dignity. Thank you very much. Thanks, well.